If you want talk, games, and fun all rolled into one, well, you've come to the right place. This is The Game Show, where host Bradley Clarke and his special guests talk about the world of television game and competition shows. But Bradley's guests aren't here to just talk. They came to play a game as well. What will today's topic be? What game does Bradley have planned? There's only one way to find out.
It's time to start the show.
You heard the man. Welcome to The Game Show. And here's your host, the Bradster himself, Bradley Clarke.
You know the intro. You love the intro. Thank you, as always, Austin Angelo, for your upbeat introduction. I'm Bradley Clarke, and welcome to another exciting episode of The Game Show, the talk show all about the world of television game and competition shows. But today, I'm opening up the show to include another form of media. Film. As loyal game show fans might realize, there aren't many films that center around the game show genre. Sure, there's the movie quiz show about the 1950s game show scandal, but besides that, game shows are barely represented on the big screen. However, last year, a new documentary was released that might just start a game show film revolution. The film is called Perfect Bid, The Contestant Who Knew Too Much, and just from the name alone, game show fans can guess that it centers around television's longest-running game show, The Price is Right.
Here it comes from the Bob Barker Studio at CBS in Hollywood. Television's most exciting hour of fantastic prizes. The fabulous 60-minute Price is Right.
In fact, the basis of the movie is a Price is Right historic moment from season 37 that took place during the showcases on the December 16th, 2008 episode.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Sharon did all those trips around the world, 4 big trips plus a safari in Africa, $30,525. Actual retail price, $31,019. Difference of $494. Wow. Terry, you had the trailer, jukebox, bid $23,743. Actual retail price, $23,743. You got it right on the nose. You win both showcases. Hasn't happened since 72 or 73. Right on the nose. We won $56,437 for the prizes today. Folks, help control the pet population. Don't forget to get your pet spayed or neutered. See you next time on Price is Right. Bye-bye.
You heard right. Contestant Terry Neese bid $23,743 on his showcase, and the actual retail price of his showcase was $23,743. Despite what host Drew Carey said, this was the first, and so far only time, a contestant has guessed their showcase price right on the nose. Terry won both showcases and won over $56,000 in cash and prizes. However, the big question is, was Terry extremely lucky, or was there some knowledge behind that bid of his? Well, there's a man that was in the audience during that taping and actually sat next to Terry that can definitely be considered a Price is Right superfan. He noticed many of the prizes the show gave away were used repeatedly on multiple episodes. So he kept track of them and started memorizing the prices of refrigerators, computers, living rooms, cars, and more. His name is Ted Slauson, and he plays a big part in the success of not only Terry Neese, but also other Price is Right contestants throughout the years. The story of Ted's Price is Right obsession is detailed in the documentary Perfect Bid, The Contestant Who Knew Too Much, which stars himself and features longtime Price is Right producer Roger Dobkowitz and legendary host of The Price is Right, Bob Barker. The film recently won Best Documentary at the 2017 Orlando Film Festival, and Ted is on the line with me now to talk about the film, as well as geek out with me about a show we both know way too much about. Please welcome onto the game show fellow Price is Right superfan, Ted Slauson. Hey, Ted, how's it going?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Well, thank you for joining me on the show. You know, I always love talking with Price is Right superfans just like myself, and especially about a movie which is all about The Price is Right. So thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely.
All right, so before we get into the specifics, I want to talk about how you first got hooked onto The Price is Right. So take me back to the first time when The Price is Right first caught your eye.
Well, I was young kid. I was 6 or 7. I was the youngest child in my family, and my brothers and sisters, we were all home for spring break or summertime, or I don't know what it was. And this is all in the documentary, of course, but we just had the one TV, and with 6 kids, then it was kind of like majority rules when it comes to deciding what you're going to watch. And they had decided, let's watch The Price is Right. And I had seen the commercials, and it didn't really strike me as something that I really wanted to watch, but I didn't really have a choice. So they turned it on, and I started watching, and pretty much by the end of that episode, I really thought it was a good show, and I started to watch it pretty much from then on. I'm still not sure if it was the first season or the second season, but it was definitely very early on in the show's run.
Well, when I watched the trailer for the movie, you mentioned 1973, so that could have been either the first or the second season.
Yeah.
So when you began seeing that some of the prizes kept reoccurring, and you started recording these prices and the different prizes that are attached to them, was it your goal to eventually attend a taping of the show and hopefully get to come on down and put all that work to good use?
Ultimately, yeah, that was the idea. And another thing that I mentioned in the documentary is they brought on so many new game shows in the 70s, and then they canceled so many of them so quickly. And I was just kind of worried because they were making all the soap operas an hour long, and they kept canceling off the game shows. And I figured, well, Price is Right's never going to make it till I'm 18. And it's, in its 45th year.
Right. It made it to when I was 18 as well, so.
Yeah.
And then in 1975, the show went to an hour. So is that even more of a push for you to try to get on the show?
I don't remember that really making a difference. I mean, certainly the show became even more enjoyable because, there were twice as many pricing games going on, and the wheel added a new element to it. So it wasn't just how much you won, but kind of how much you won and how good your 2 spins on the wheel or 1 spin on the wheel was or were.
It's funny because the showcase showdowns are probably my favorite part of each Price is Right episode. However, sometimes I do get annoyed when contestants make it to the showcase round, and they didn't even win their pricing game, but instead got lucky on a wheel spin or 2.
Right.
So when was the first time that you attended a Price is Right episode?
The first time was around May of 1984, and I had gone with a very long-time friend of mine. We had planned a whole week-long trip down in the Los Angeles area, and we showed up to the studio on Monday, and it kind of seemed like there aren't a whole lot of people here. I wonder what's going on. And we quickly found out from the pages that they had to cancel the taping that day. We heard 2 different stories. They told us that day it was someone on the crew had a death in the family, and I think the next day, when we actually did go to a taping, Bob Barker gave a whole different reason why they had canceled the day before. But that actually happened to be when they taped the show the next day. It was the final show of the 12th season, which was kind of interesting that I got to be there for kind of a historic event.
You mentioned the year 1984, and that's a significant year in the game show world. I'm sure you know about Michael Larson and the Pressure Luck quote-unquote scandal. I've never referred to it as a scandal because I thought his work was just genius. So when you saw a contestant like Michael Larson go on Pressure Luck, memorize the patterns so that he would never hit a whammy and he'd always hit 5,000 in a spin, 4,000 in a spin, 3,000 in a spin, and he walked away with $110,237 in cash and prizes. Did that fuel you to say, well, I'm doing kind of the same thing with Price is Right, so maybe I should be like him and go on the show?
In a way, although I should mention that the taping of the Michael Larson episode, and I discovered this doing kind of the research from all of the shows that I went to, that show actually taped the Saturday before I attended my first taping at CBS.
Oh, wow. So you really picked a good time to go to CBS Television City in Hollywood.
Right. Maybe that's why they canceled the taping Monday. They were still reeling from the loss of $110,000 from Pressure Luck.
So when you attended tapings of The Price is Right with all these prices of prizes in your head, was your goal to beat the system, or was it just to show that being a superfan can legitimately help you win?
It was more the second. In fact, I think my original feeling was if I were to go to a taping and get picked, I don't want to be standing in contestants' row and have no clue what I want to bid. I want to have a good idea. And once I started getting recognized because I had been to enough tapings and had kind of called attention to myself, I was really worried that if and when they picked me, they were going to pick me at the very last. So I just have the one chance to get up on stage. So if nothing else, that feeling kind of inspired me to really make sure I knew as many of the prices as I could so that I wouldn't be one of those contestants not appearing on stage.
Contestants not appearing on stage will receive one of those.
Exactly.
See, you are smart, and this is what drives me crazy when I watch The Price is Right. And this is really with any game show. If you know that you're going to be on, now Price is Right is a little different because you don't know if you're going to be picked, but if you're in the audience, you should assume that you're going to get picked. You should go to the show knowing as much as you need to know to do well. It doesn't necessarily mean like what you did, but just the tricks of the pricing games or the elements of the show. You should always memorize or just be confident about knowing a lot of the elements.
Right. And obviously things like, the 10 chances rule and...
Right. Cliffhangers.
Yeah.
It's common to win that if you know the tricks for that. There's so many games that your chances of winning them are increased if you know these little tricks. And a lot of these games have been on for so many years. It's unbelievable how some of these people don't know how to play some of these games.
Right.
You can tell how I get mad at the TV sometimes. And speaking of pricing games, later on, in a little bit, it's called The Game Show, so I love to play a game with all of my guests, so we're going to play an original version of a classic pricing game right here.
Ooh, awesome.
So I hope you're looking forward to playing the game. But my next question is, as we get closer to talking specifically about the film, what year would you eventually hear Theodore Slauson, come on down?
1992.
So 8 years after you first attended a taping. Bob Barker has this one phrase for the listening audience who may not know. If he tells you this, then you know you're a fan of The Price is Right. If he refers to you as a loyal friend and true.
You are a loyal friend and true.
You are a Price is Right fan, super fan. So he calls you a loyal friend and true. And you actually got to play my favorite pricing game of all time. I'm actually very jealous. You got to play Punch-a-Bunch.
Yes, I did. And unfortunately, at the time, I did not know the corner rule, although with the show airing in October, you never know where the budget would have been at that point. And one of the absolute joys of this entire experience is getting to meet Roger Dobkowitz in person and getting to just kind of ask him questions about the show and just interacting with him. And he's just been a wonderful person. And he told us at one point that the placement of those big money slips really depended on, how the budget was doing. And if they wanted it one, they'd put it in one of the corners. And if they didn't want it one, they'd put it kind of right next to a corner because people didn't really punch there. And the last time I saw The Price is Right live when it came to San Antonio, I had predicted before the show, and this is before I met Roger, I had kind of decided, I'll bet you if I got up there and played Punch-a-Bunch, I bet it's either right below or right above one of the corners. And at the end of the game, they did show it, and it was right above the bottom right corner.
You know what's funny?
So there's a lot of psychology in that game.
I was about to say, what's funny is that a lot of the contestants, they'll punch the corner or they'll punch a lot of the higher holes. I'm saying to myself, why not punch the lower holes? Because if you think about it, a lot of contestants probably wouldn't punch the lower holes, so they put the $25,000 in one of those holes. And also, too, if I ever got to play Punch-a-Bunch, which hopefully I will one day, you never know, I would punch 4 of them all in a row or fairly close to each other. Now, when you played Punch-a-Bunch, the top prize was $10,000, and there were 2 $10,000 holes compared to the one $25,000 top prize hole today. But even with essentially 2 opportunities to win the top prize, what was your strategy playing Punch-a-Bunch?
Interesting you should ask, because I did almost exactly that. Okay, this is going to be a long answer, and I apologize in advance, but in 1990, and you may know this, Game Tech came out with this Price is Right software game.
Sure, yeah.
And I saw it, and I was so excited, and I bought it online, and I waited and waited and waited for it to come in the mail, and I finally got it, and I loaded it on my computer, and I was so disappointed. And I had already learned how to program in BASIC, and at some point around that time, I learned that, they have like a modified version of BASIC on the PC, and I started playing around with it, and I thought to myself, you know what, I can make a better game than this Game Tech version. And it took me 2 years, but I did get all the games that were on the show at the time programmed, and obviously Contestants Row and the showcases and the wheel. And right before I went to the tapings during the week when I got picked, I had played my home game, and it would pick a random selection of games, but it would pick them based on how they would do it on the show. Like, you wouldn't have 5 card games. You'd have 1 in each half, and you'd have maybe a money game, and, there'd be 1 game with grocery items and so forth. And I played it right before I left, or, within a couple days of when I left. And one of the games was Punch-a-Bunch, and I won all 4 punches, and I had no clue. So I just, because it's random. So I just went to the absolute middle of the board, and I punched the 4 holes in the very middle, and the very first one was $10,000. And so when I got on the show and I actually played the game, I was thinking, should I do the same thing? So I went with a modified thing where I went down the second row, and I punched, I think it's the 3rd hole from the left, and then the 5th hole and the 7th hole and the 9th hole. And it actually turned out really well. I mean, I didn't win the big money, but I won a nice amount and was smart enough to know that I should just take it and run, despite the 300 people in the audience who were all telling me, give it back. And if I had gone all the way, I would have ended up with $50, which was the lowest amount on the punch board that year. So
you won $1,000, right?
Yes.
And that's pretty good for that game, $1,000, especially at that time.
Right.
Because there was only 5 holes higher than that, because it was 3 5,000s and 2 10,000s, so that's pretty good.
Right, and that was part of my decision-making was I thought, I actually say it incorrectly in the film, and I hope I don't get blasted by fans of the show, because I said there's 44 that are lower than that, and what I meant was there's 44 that are not better than 1,000. And I just figured with the way my luck runs, I just have a feeling if I give this back, I'm going to regret it. And every single amount that he revealed was less than the one before it, all the way down to the 50 at the end. And I was just like, I looked at the audience at the end, and I'm like, see?
See, now, I always say, if I was on the show, I would never listen to the audience. So, good going on you. I knew we had a connection of our super fandom. We both know the strategies for Punch-a-Bunch. We both know not to listen to the audience.
Yep.
So let's talk about the film, Perfect Bid, The Contestant Who Knew Too Much. I'm so fascinated by this film. So I want to talk about the actual taping day that this film is based on, which was the famous Perfect Bid on the showcase. Now, at the end, yes, Drew Carey says that it hasn't happened since 72 or 73. From my knowledge, it's never happened at all. I think that was some false information.
I still don't know. Some people claim to have seen it. My friend who I said I went to the first taping with, I will ask her when she's here. She's coming. We take an annual road trip, and shout out to my friend Dee. I think she remembers having seen it, but I don't know that she remembers if it was the daytime or the nighttime version. She either saw that or she remembers a tie in the showcase. I don't remember which. But, yeah, I definitely don't remember ever seeing a Perfect Bid on the showcase.
So this happened season 37 in 2008. Now, prior to this taping, because you've been to so many with host Bob Barker, did you ever attend a taping of Drew Carey's version of the show?
This was my first taping with Drew. Season 35, I went to the show. I had gone back to the show several times with family or friends to see if I could help one of them win, and didn't go to the show for 10 years. So started going back in 2002, and in Bob's last season, and I still don't know because he hadn't announced his retirement, but I just had a feeling like I wanted to go see another taping, and I actually went by myself, which was kind of a waste, except I helped a couple other contestants win. But it was shortly after that he announced that he was going to retire. And then season 36 came and went, and I just, watched it at home, and I was tracking the prices because that was what I liked to do. And then around the end of the season is when they announced the change in eligibility, and I thought, well, I can go back and win again. So I'm going to study these prices, like I've never done before. And by the time I went to that taping, I was, I would say, pretty darn well prepared.
So you mentioned his name before because he's also in the film Roger Dobkowitz, but season 37 in 2008 was the first season where Mike Richards was the executive producer of The Price is Right, after longtime executive producer Roger Dobkowitz had been let go. So when you attended the taping of the Perfect Showcase Bid, was there a different vibe at this taping? Because the show, starting that season, was supposedly going in a new direction, which is why Mike Richards was hired and Roger was let go.
I felt a difference, but I don't know that it was because Roger wasn't there. Having been to 36 tapings with Bob, actually it was 35, I guess, tapings with Bob. He would tell a lot of the same jokes during the commercials or have a lot of the same general reactions to things. And, people would say, how old are you? And he'd say, next question, and everyone would laugh. But Drew didn't do that. He would talk to the audience and maybe tell a couple jokes or whatever, but it was a different general vibe in the studio, and I think the big part of it was the person hosting the show, not necessarily who was producing it.
Right. So you got placed in the front row next to Terry Nese. When you sat down next to him, did you know right then and there that this was the guy you were going to help on the episode?
No. As a matter of fact, I had gotten there really early in the morning. I can't remember if it was 1 or 2. It was, back then you had to do that if you wanted really good seats.
Right.
And I had gotten there. There were 3 people ahead of me in line. There was the older couple who were in seats kind of 1 and 2, if you know how they seat the audience. Have you ever been to a taping?
Sadly, no, but I hope to one day.
Okay, so the way they used to seat the audience is that front row, the 5 people to the right of contestants' row, if you're looking at the audience, those are the first 5 people who got in line. And usually the next 5, 6 through 10 are on the other side of contestants' row, and they would generally fill that center section first. So there were 3 people ahead of me. The one guy who was in the 3rd position said, go ahead of me. And I said, well, you were here before me. And he goes, oh, no, it's okay. I want to be a certain place in line. And he somehow knew that if he was number, 20, he would be dead center in the 2nd row, and he'd get a lot of camera time. And he'd been there, I think he said 99 times. You think you're a fan and you've been there a lot, and then you meet someone who's been there that many times, you're just like, wow. And then Terry showed up about an hour after I got there, and this is in the documentary as well, but he called his wife when people were showing up pretty consistently, and they were staying at a hotel nearby, and I wasn't trying to be rude and I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but I heard him say, oh, you should come over. The line's really starting to get long, and okay, I'll see you in a few minutes. And he hung up, and I said, I wasn't trying to be rude or anything, but I said, is that your wife? And he goes, yeah, she's going to come over and join me. And I said, my sister would kill me if I didn't tell you this, but this is really not the greatest neighborhood, and you should go walk her over here. And I said, I'll hold your place in line. Don't worry about it. He goes, oh, are you sure? I said, yeah, don't worry about it. So he went, and they were back really fast. So the 2 of them, his wife's name is Linda, and the 2 people ahead of me and I were kind of, chatting about the show. And I had asked the guy who'd been there a lot, the 99 times if he'd ever seen a double showcase winner, because at that point I had never seen one in all the times I'd been there. He said, oh, yeah, I've seen a couple of them. And from what I remember, Linda obviously watched the show because she knew some of the grocery item prices. She's like, yeah, the Jelly Bellies are $1.49 and the Clorox wipes are $2.99. And I can't remember the 3rd one. I think it was the Cajun injector that they had on the show at the time, and that's $5.99. And not only was she on the nose, which, a lot of times I would just stand there and kind of humor people and nod and smile. I'm standing there thinking, wow, she knows what she's talking about, and I don't see that very often. Every single item she priced when we were in line, the grocery items that she talked about, it's in the bag that day.
Wow.
It was crazy. It was almost like she knew what was coming. But I don't remember Terry being as excited to be there. I mean, he was enjoying himself, seemed like, but we were talking about the show, and he was kind of looking at us all. The impression I got was, okay, he's maybe seen the show a couple times, but he obviously doesn't watch it as much as Linda does because she really knows her stuff, and he's kind of looking at us like he's processing what we're saying, but it's not something that someone who watches a lot would understand necessarily.
Right. So one of the 1-bit items was the big green egg cooker that was used on the show quite a bit at the time. So when you saw the big green egg come around on the turntable, I'm sure you knew the price automatically. So were you communicating with Terry right away to bid $11.75?
Yes, that was, I think, the 3rd item up for bids. The first one, I was off by $100 because the boats generally would go up about once a year, and this boat had been $35.95, and that day it was $36.95, but he wasn't listening, and Linda, didn't realize I knew. The second item I didn't know. I think it was a camera, and it wasn't one that I had in my database. So when the big green egg came up, I knew right away what it was, and I either told his wife or we both signaled it to him, or I don't remember exactly how it is. And something that's interesting is that the show that aired is not the show that they edited as they shot it, because when C.J. Wallace, who made the film, when he requested that show from Fremantle, they sent him the show that they shot, not the show that they aired. And when they aired it, they did as much as they could to edit me out of the show, even though I'm right there in the front row.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that because I noticed 2 instances where it naturally seemed like the show was trying to edit something out. Now, I watch the show every day, so I know the generic list of camera shots that the show uses. However, I automatically question a shot of Terry coming up on stage after getting his perfect bid in Contestants Row. And a lot of people probably remember Terry's perfect showcase bid, but he also got a perfect bid, thanks to you, in Contestants Row, and won not only the big green egg cooker, but $500 in cash. Brad fact! So when he came up, they showed a shot of Drew right as he was about to come up the steps. Now, usually they would show Terry, high-fiving you and high-fiving Linda, and then coming up. and they edited that out. And then again, when you're at the showcase, which we'll get to in a second, but instead of showing your section, because Linda was there, his wife, they showed a picture of Drew and the other contestant talking about the boat.
Right. Well, and I don't know if you also noticed, but when they would do the one bids, usually what they would do is whoever's in that last position, they would, pan from left to right. And then while the camera's going back to catch the person on the left side, they would show Bob or Drew or whoever's hosting. Well, that day, what they would do is after the third person, or the person in that third position, they'd switch to Drew, and then they'd come back, and they'd be really tightly zoomed in on that last person, and that was to edit me out because I'm right there in the front row. They went to great lengths, and I still don't know why. It's like, what was the point of that? I only got 2 of the one bids right on the nose that day. It's not like I was, helping everyone get up there with a perfect bid. It was just kind of crazy.
And is it the point of the audience to help the contestants as much as they can, to shout out prices and to use hand signals to communicate numbers to them?
Yep. And Roddy, bless his heart, he had a really funny warm-up that he would do before the show. And one of the things he would say is he'd have the audience do the oath of audience, and it would, be I, your name, I'm here to have a good time, and it'd go on and on and on. And one of the things was he'd start talking about if you get called down to contestants row, Bob is going to look you in the eyes and say, what do you bid? And your mind will go to Jell-O. And everyone laughs and say, when that happens, don't turn around and say, I don't know, because it looks dumb when you do that on TV. These 300 people will help you. Won't you help these people? And everyone says yes. And he goes, see, what could be easier? Pick the one person out of 300 screaming people, and you'll win in contestants row.
You gotta love Roddy.
So that was pretty much encouraged, and it always was, and still is, I think, to a certain degree.
Right. But you know what's interesting, what I've noticed over the last few years, is that the superfan stature has kind of degraded on television. When Bob was host of the show, he would notice contestants who were super fans based on their knowledge of prices or the pricing games, and he'd say to them, just like he said to you, that they were a loyal friend and true. And Bob would also encourage others to watch the show more often after a superfan contestant won big. However, it seems to me like the show doesn't really highlight the loyal friends and true anymore. Do you notice that as well?
It definitely is a different show. What I find interesting is that their newest, I don't want to use Roger's word, but their newest idea that they're trying is this superfan show contest thing. They're doing a superfan episode taping this month, and it's going to air next month. And, when I heard about it, next thing I heard right after that was, there's already a wait list for tickets. And I'm thinking, well, are they just giving tickets to everyone? Because if it's a superfan show, shouldn't there be, some kind of criteria? Like, name 5 games that we play on our show.
I agree.
Something. And you're just handing out tickets. So it's like, well, then how is this a superfan show? How is this not just a every normal day taping?
Oh, I 100% agree. And I do know about this superfan show taping. And I said the exact same thing that you did. And I was thinking, to prove that these people are superfans, in order to get into the taping, the contestant coordinators should test every single person online to recite the order of the amounts on the big wheel. And if they can't recite them perfectly in order, they can't get into the taping.
Starting with $1?
Starting with $1. Can you do it? Because I can.
Let me see. $1, 15, 80, 35, 60, 20, 40, 75, 55, 95, 50, 85, 30, 65, 10, 45, 70, 25, 95.
You got it.
Yay.
That's what they should do. Make everyone say the order of the wheel. Then you know who's a real superfan.
Yep.
Because that wheel has been the exact same since 1975. So if you don't know it by now, then you should not be on that superfan show.
Yep, I agree.
So moving on to Terry's pricing game segment, he ended up losing his playing of Switch, but I read somewhere that it was because you thought there was only one exercise bike on the stage and not 2?
Yeah, from where I was sitting, there was probably a camera in the way, and the way the bikes were positioned, like the front wheel of the one is right in front of the back wheel of the other. I mean, I'm not trying to make excuses, but as I've watched this episode, I'm like, well, that must have been what happened, because I swear it said exercise bike singular, or somehow in my head that's what I decided it said, and the computers at the time were getting out of control with the prices. They were getting really high, and so I just figured that price that ended with 79 would be the exercise bike, and that weird 3644 would be the computer. And Linda agreed with me, so we were the only 2 people in the audience telling him to switch. And so he did, and then obviously we all know he didn't win. I mean, it's funny because one thing that Drew says in an interview is, well, that guy was helping, a lot of the contestants. But when Terry played his pricing game, we were way down stage at door number 2 or way upstage or whatever. And, he couldn't see that guy. And I'm thinking, couldn't see me. He was totally listening to both of us. We were both telling him to switch. That's like the one time they actually put me on camera on that episode is when we're telling him to switch. And it's probably more because the angle they shot, they were really trying to get his wife.
Right, yeah. I'm still so curious as to why they would edit you out. You are a super fan. You should get more airtime than anyone else.
Well, that's a really great question.
So despite losing Switch, he did win the first Showcase Showdown and made it to the showcase. And his prizes were passed to him. It was a karaoke machine, a pool table, and a 17-foot camping trailer. So I've seen interviews where Terry has said how he came up with his $23,743 bid. Did you give that bid, or did he actually figure that out himself, or was there a combination of the two?
Okay, good question. So I knew the karaoke machine was $1,000. I'd seen it before. It was in my database. At this point, I'm using a program that I wrote that uses pictures from the actual broadcast of the prizes. And I had no idea when I started doing it this way that it was going to really enhance the memorization process, because it got to the point where they could open the doors and I could almost visually immediately know what the prize was and how much it was. So that karaoke machine I knew was $1,000. The pool table I knew was $2,800. And I don't know if you're interested in knowing how I was able to deduce a lot of the prices of the trailers and the boats and stuff, but when they opened the doors on the trailer, it's obviously the high-low trailer, and I'm looking at it, and there were two of them. There was a 17-foot and a 22-foot, I believe it was, and I knew the prices of both. I figured it was the 17-foot, but I listened for the description just to make sure, because I didn't want to have him go over by giving him the price of the 22-foot trailer if it really wasn't, nor did I want him to go under. So I heard the length of the trailer was 17 feet, and I said, okay, that's $19,943. And, I'm a math person. I've always kind of had an affinity toward math. It was my degree in college. I'm sitting there adding these three numbers up in the most stupid way possible in my head. All I really had to do was add $4,000 to $19,943 and subtract $200. But I'm doing this weird convoluted thing in my head, and I turned to Linda, and I think at this point Sharon was just about ready to decide that she was going to pass. And I said to Linda, it's $23,743. She passed to Terry. Terry started looking at us, and you don't see it on the broadcast episode, but you'll see it in the documentary. He's looking at us, his mouth's kind of mouthing some of the numbers, and I had this kind of weird premonition, call it what you will, but I suddenly thought, maybe we don't want to be right on the nose. Maybe we should just get both showcases and, not call attention, whatever. So I kind of changed my mind, and I'd already sold him $23,743. I'm sure Linda did too. But I changed mine to $23,500, and right about the time I did that, he said $23,743.
Sharon, what do you say? You want to bid on that or pass it on to Terry?
I like that trailer.
How big is the trailer?
I'm going to go ahead and pass it.
17-foot, Drew.
17 foot. She's passing it on to Terry. Terry, what do you bid for all that? It would have been an 18-foot trailer. She might have bid on it. But it was only a 17-foot
$23,743.
$23,743. Wow. That's a very exact bid.
And they lit it up. And that was the point where Kathy Greco, who had become producer when Roger left, or one of the producers, she had a clipboard. She was, walking around stage the whole show, keeping track of everything. Well, she just kind of stopped and walked over to this area. And I don't know if you remember in season 37, they put the production staff kind of behind a wall next to the turntable.
Yes.
And it had like a raised screen.
Yes.
She just stood there and stared into the screen. And probably for good 30 seconds, minute, and the other showcase was going on, and I'm looking over there thinking, yeah, we got it on the nose because she's already panicking, and this is going to be interesting how this plays out. I mean, as you probably know, when they went to commercial, it was like a 10, 15-minute stop-down that seemed more like an eternity than 10 or 15 minutes. And they were, getting standards and practices involved and trying to figure out, can we even air this episode? Because, it's The Price is Right, and someone got a price right.
I was about to say because isn't the point to get the price right? And they're talking about not airing an episode. This show's been on for 37 years. There's been some wacky things and some rare great moments. This is just adding to the excitement of the show. Someone actually got a showcase bid right on the nose. I'm sure fans for years have been wondering, when is this going to happen? It's just like, when was the first $1 million winner going to be on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? It's like the same thing. Is someone going to bid an exact bid on the showcase? Here was your moment. And then they're wondering, do we have to air this? I mean, the same thing kind of went through with the Michael Larson thing. They didn't know what to do because they didn't think this was ever going to happen. And they eventually realized that this guy just beat us, and they decided to air it. But I'm saying to myself, as you were telling the story, it's kind of getting me mad that, they would think about not airing this because someone got a price right on the nose.
Yep.
Anyway, so they stop tape, and once they resume, Drew reveals the actual retail price of Sharon's showcase, and she's only off by $494, which on any other day is basically a guaranteed win. But then Drew goes to Terry and reveals his actual retail price in sort of a somber way. He says $23,743, and that he got it right on the nose, and basically brushes off this historic moment that is supposed to be exciting because it's never happened before. So what was your reaction to Drew's handling of the moment?
I thought it was really unfortunate. I already was a little concerned that they were going to drag me backstage and no one was ever going to see me again, because during that stop down, one of the things that happened was they had the music playing to try to keep the audience up while they were trying to figure out what they're going to do. And we were all clapping along, and I looked up, and I can't remember if the camera was on Linda first or on me first, but it was obvious that light wasn't on, but the camera's pointing right at one of us. And I leaned over and I said, "You're on camera, smile." And she goes, "What?" And I said, "You got the camera on you, just, keep clapping and smiling." And then next time I looked up, it was pointed right at me. And I thought, okay, well, they've figured out that one of us knew the prices and gave him this bid. So when they finally came back and revealed it, and he was so hasn't happened since 72 or 73, right on the nose. It was kind of disappointing, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, I just want to get this over with and get out of here because, this is just a little too surreal now. They don't seem to be very happy about it, and it should be an exciting moment, you would think. And I don't mean to sound like I'm bragging here, but with the way I was tracking all the prices and stuff, getting a showcase on the nose for me at home happened at least once or twice a week. For me, it was normal. And so when it happened there, it was just like, oh, I don't think they like this as much as I do.
You have all the right to brag. And it's, so interesting that you said to bid $23,500 at one moment, because he would still win both showcases. He would be $243 off, but Sharon, the other player, was only about $400 off. So that was cutting it close, too.
Yeah, and I had no idea with her showcase at all, because it was 4 trips, which I'll talk about in the documentary. It was highly unusual for a trip to appear twice on the show that had the same price, so the best I could do with those was kind of a ballpark. But these were trips to places like one of them was South Africa, and I was like, I've never seen a trip to South Africa, so I don't even know where to begin there. And I had already helped Sharon win a car in one away, so she may have looked at me and I just looked like, I don't even have the first clue on this. And so wherever her bid came from, and I think it came from her own brain, that was amazing when she was only $494 away. Amazing and then sad because, in a way, she really would have earned her win because she did it by herself.
So what happens once the show's over? Do you just leave like it's any other normal day?
Yes and no. They usually come out and they do a door prize. So they'll draw one of the contestant cards kind of from random from this basket, and that person gets $100 or whatever. And I think it was while they were doing that, Linda had come back down the stairs and was getting her stuff, or I don't know what she was doing. And Kathy Greco was standing right at the front of the stage right there. And she went, "Linda, Linda." And she turned around and she motioned her back up on stage. And I thought, here we go. They're going to take us both, and we're going to be locked in separate rooms and questioned for hours until they figure out what happened. And she went up on stage, and there was no conspiracy. I guess she wanted Drew to autograph her shirt, so she walked over and Drew autographed the back of her shirt. She came back down, and they thanked everyone for coming, and basically we all started leaving, and they had seats available for the second taping, and I figured, well, I'm going to go ahead and do that because I'm here, and I think I was spending another night in L.A., so I didn't have to leave, and I thought I may as well just go to another one. So I got back in line for that show, and then Terry and Linda came out he had his cue card with his total winnings on it. People were kind of congratulating him, and Linda and I had our own brief interaction, and I went to the second taping, and what happened was, it was odd because I was way near the end of the line. I think number 269, and usually if you're that far back, you end up on one of the two sides of the audience. But for whatever weird reason, I ended up in the back row of the center section. And at one point, someone from CBS, or I forget what her title was, but she came out and they announced, I think, over the PA, and I didn't hear it. The person next to me said, "Aren't you 269? And I said, "What?" And she goes, "Aren't you 269? They just said they need to talk to number 269, or they need number 269. I was like, oh. So this woman comes over, and she has me stand up. She never said a word to me. She just had me stand up and follow her. She may have said, "Follow me," I don't remember. Walks me over to the side of the audience, which is kind of on the turntable side of the stage. And she pointed to a guy and had him stand up and had me sit there, and then he went over and sat where I was. Well, this whole section, I guess, was paid audience members, because at that point they were having a hard time filling up the audience for a taping. And I was kind of baffled, because I thought, okay, I can still see, I can see Contestants Row, I can see the stage. Why'd they move me over here? And what I didn't realize until it happened is, before the second showcase showdown, they pivot the entire turntable area kind of backwards, because normally you can't see door number 1 at all when you're up there. And when they pivot it, you can see all 3 doors from where you stand for the showcases. Well, when they pivot it, the wall kind of on the far end toward the audience angles in such a way that from that seat, you can't see the people in the showcase. And I figured, oh, that's why they moved me over here. And what was funny was, every time I'd yell out a bid or a price, there'd be someone in that production area who'd peek out from behind the curtain, and they'd be looking right at me. So it's like, okay, clearly they know that I was responsible for this perfect bid, because they're so interested in everything I'm doing at this taping.
So was that the last taping you've attended?
Yep, that was the very last one. I have not been back since. And I was told through unofficial channels that I was on a short list of people who were banned from the studio, but during the making of the film, Fremantle told CJ that there is no banned list. He can come back anytime he wants. It's like, okay, I'll just book my plane ticket now.
Why would they ban you? That's so weird.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I know other people, I don't know that they were banned necessarily, but I know other people who've known a lot of the prices. One of the things they did that Roger has actually talks about in the film is they went through the line and basically tried to tell everyone, well, I know all the prices, so if you get picked, you should listen to me, and I'll make sure you win, and blah, blah, blah. And they didn't like that, because it's one thing to be in the audience and yell out a number that's right and have someone go, hey, that guy knows what he's talking about. But when you go and tell everyone ahead of time, then what kind of a show is that?
Yeah, that's just dumb. Keep your secrets to yourself and just let them out when you need to.
Right.
That's just dumb, just saying, oh, I know all the prices. Then you know you're never getting on the show.
Right, and one of the things I talk about, too, is my dad and my sister in those later shows that I went to, we'd be talking with people in line, and one of them would invariably say, oh, my son knows a lot of the prices. You should listen to him if you win. And then it's like, well, great. Now if they get picked and something comes up that I don't know the price of, they're not going to be very happy with you or me.
Right. That's the one slippery slope with being a superfan.
Absolutely.
So how did the film Perfect Bid, The Contestant Who Knew Too Much come to be? Did you go to director C.J. Wallace saying that you wanted to make a documentary out of your story? Did he come to you? How did it all work out?
I didn't know him. I had done the interview for the article that appeared in Esquire, which I guess came out in 2010. His parents bought him a copy of the magazine, and he read it, and he realized when he read it, he's like, okay, clearly there's this slant in the story, but it's clear to me that Ted's the one who knew what he was doing. So he actually contacted me, I think, first on goldenroad.net, and I still have that message, and I think it was dated 2010. I think it was shortly after that article was written. And he said, I have this idea for a movie. I'm going to do it about a fictitious game show, but it's going to be similar to what happened with The Perfect Bid, and you'd have a paid credit position. And I was like, okay, if this happens, great, and if it doesn't, great. And time went by, a couple of years go by, and he'd contact me again and say, oh, I'm really sorry I haven't been in touch, but, I'm working on getting funding for the film, and blah, 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 blah. Okay. And in 2016, I think, he had money raised for the film, and he had contacted Fremantle, and they had given him their blessing. And he said, okay, well, if they're willing to cooperate and, give me the footage I want to use, then I'm going to go ahead with this. And at some point, though, before he got the Fremantle, I had written up kind of a storyline of, this is how I started getting into the show, and this is what happened at the first taping, and here's what happened over the years. And he read that and he goes, I'm not going to do this about a fictitious game show. He said, you pretty much wrote the whole thing for me. I'm just going to do this about you. And I was like, okay. And so when he got permission from Fremantle to use footage, he started sending them episodes that he wanted to, they would send him a screener that has the time code on it so that you can tell exactly what frames you're using. In May of last year, he flew me up to Vancouver for 3 days. It was Memorial Day weekend. And he shot. He says it was only an hour. It felt like more than that to me, but he said it was about an hour the first night, an hour the second night, and then on Monday they had gotten permission to use this theater in Vancouver that has red seats. It looks kind of a lot like CBS if you're not paying attention to what's in the background. And we did about 3 hours worth of filming there. And then I was on my way, and then after that he got Roger involved, and Roger helped him get Bob involved, and so they both did a day of filming, and he's got bits and pieces of that in the documentary as well.
Did you ever imagine that you would be in the same film as Bob Barker?
No, and I have top billing.
Nice.
That's the one thing I told people. I'm like, if someone had told me that you're going to be in a film and you're going to get top billing over Bob Barker, I'd be like, no, I'm not.
That's what happens when you're a super fan. Was Terry Nese contacted for the film?
He was not, but he did contact CJ at one point, and I don't know how much I should say, but it wasn't a very positive email, and we haven't really heard anything back from him since, but it had sort of a threatening tone to it, like, well, you don't know the whole story, and I'm the one who made this perfect bid, and CJ responded in a nice way and said, we totally know what the story is, and thanks for reaching out. And
well, then we'll move on.
Yeah, exactly.
So the film won Best Documentary at the 2017 Orlando Film Festival. It's been screened at film festivals all over the country. Did you ever think this film would be as successful as it was? Because there's not that many game show films out there, and for one to get this credibility is, to me, great.
I've been absolutely amazed at how well it's been received and how it's been reviewed 3 times already on Rotten Tomatoes. They've all been positive reviews. No one's really gone out of their way to be mean or negative. And there's so many ways that people could be mean or negative by saying, so this geek spent his life memorizing prices, who cares? But everyone's been really nice. And the people that I've got to meet at different film festivals, when we went to Huntington Beach last month, CJ actually, we were trying to meet up with him for lunch because it was on his birthday when they screened the film. And he said, we're on our way. And he said, by the way, the people at the festival are all very excited to meet you. I'm like, okay. And they were just really, really excited. And, it's so nice to meet you. And I really like the film and blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, this is great.
So do you think the film is being well received and being praised because this is a true story and this moment has a big effect on Price is Right history and television history?
I think that's part of it, and because he does so much of the backstory about, how I got into this, and he shows some other folks that I've helped over the years, and it's not just me saying, yeah, I helped this person win. You actually can see evidence in the different clips that he uses of that they go to me and basically say he helped me, or, I went up on stage with a person who won the showcase one time, and she even says, there's Theodore when she won. And not like you say that about anyone who comes up on stage to celebrate with you at the end of the show.
Right, yeah. So I've got to ask you, because I'm sure a lot of our listeners are wondering the exact same thing. Is Perfect Big going to make its way onto DVD or any streaming sites in the near future?
It's going to be available on May 8th. It's going to be on Netflix and Amazon, and it'll be on DVD at Walmart. And I don't know who all is going to be selling it, but a distribution company did reach out to him a while back and said, we want this film. And they seem to think, and I don't want to jinx anything, but they seem to think it's going to be really popular and really well received.
Now that I know that, I can't wait to pick up a copy.
Yep.
Well, Ted, we have reached my favorite portion of the game show. Now, as a Price is Right superfan, I'm sure, Ted, that you love to play games, correct?
Sure.
Well, then I have a game just for you. We're going to play an original version of a pricing game. It is time for the game of the day.
Game of the day.
And we are going to play Grand Game. Grand Game.
Oh, excellent.
I'm sure you know how Grand Game works on the show.
Yes.
However, my version is a bit different. So here's how it works. There's going to be 3 rounds in this version of Grand Game, and each round will test your knowledge of the debut years of Price is Right pricing games. So at the start of every round, I will give you a target year. Then I'll give you the names of 6 pricing games. 4 of those pricing games made their debut playing on the Price is Right before that target year. So you have to pick out the 4 pricing games that debuted before the target year to earn points. Each correct pricing game named is worth 2,000 points, but if you can name all 4 pricing games that debuted on the Price is Right before the target year, that round will be worth 10,000 points.
All right.
And to win the game, you have to earn 16,000 points or more by the end of the 3rd round.
Okay.
That's the game. Are you ready to play?
I'm ready.
Then let's play Grand Game. So let's start round 1. Your target year is 1978. That's 1978. And here come your 6 pricing games. Temptation, Check Game, 10 Chances, Switcheroo, Shell Game, and Grand Game. That's Temptation, Check Game, 10 Chances, Switcheroo, Shell Game, and Grand Game. 4 of those pricing games debuted before 1978. Your job is to pick them. So start off with one that you know for sure debuted before 1978.
I'm going to start with Shell Game.
Shell Game is correct. 1974. You have 2,000 points. Pick another one.
Definitely Temptation.
Temptation is also correct. 1973. You have 4,000 points. Try for 6,000 now.
All right. I'm going to say 10 Chances.
10 Chances is correct. 1975. You have 6,000 points now. If you want, you can risk your 6,000 points by picking the one remaining pricing game you think debuted before 1978, or you can stop and bank your 6,000 points because, as you know, at this point of the game, if you go on and try to pick the one remaining correct answer and you don't successfully do it, you lose your 6,000 points.
Right. I'm pretty sure I know it, but because I only need, you said 16,000 points?
Yes.
Then I'm going to go ahead and stop, just because I don't want to lose the points in case I'm wrong. But I think the right one is Switcheroo.
But you got to stop.
Yes.
All right, so you got to stop with 6,000 points. That's still great. One round down, you have 6,000 points. You said, though, you thought it was Switcheroo, and it was Switcheroo. Switcheroo debuted in 1976. Grand Game debuted in 1980. Check Game debuted in 1981. But you're one round done. You have 6,000 points. So if you get the 10,000 in this round, you win.
Excellent.
Here comes round 2. The target year is 1986. That's 1986. And here come your 6 pricing games. Spelling Bee, Checkout, Pathfinder, Master Key, Bonus Game, and One Away. That's Spelling Bee, Checkout, Pathfinder, Master Key, Bonus Game, and One Away. Pick the 4 pricing games out of those 6 that debuted before 1986.
All right. I know for a fact, because it was on the episode that we went to at our second taping, that Master Key is before 1986.
Well, you would be right. 1983, you have 2,000 points. Pick another one.
I'm trying to avoid the one that's obvious because it was the second game they ever played. Yeah, I'm being really cagey because I don't want to lose any points. Now, the only time you lose them is on the last one. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if I pick the wrong one now, I still get 2,000 points.
Yes.
Okay. Bonus game.
Bonus Game is correct. That was the second ever pricing game ever played on The Price is Right, as you mentioned, 1972. Brad fact, you have 4,000 points.
Okay. I know I'm doing the whole millionaire thing right now. I'm trying to not be obnoxious, but I know I saw Pathfinder on a taping that I was at, but I don't know if it was before 1986. Spelling Bee, I think, is later. I know I've seen it in a taping, but I think it's later. I'm going to say Checkout.
Checkout. You weren't too sure, but you're sure enough. 1982, it is correct.
Excellent.
So that means you have 6,000 points. We have reached the same decision as last time. Do you want to try for 10,000 and the win, or bank the 6,000? You'll have 12,000, which means you have to earn at least 4,000 in the next round, and then try to win it that way.
I'm going to bank it just to be safe because I'm not 100% sure on this one. I think it's probably one away, but I don't know for sure.
But you're going to bank the 6,000.
Correct.
Which means you have 12,000 points. And once again, if you would have listened to your gut, one away was the correct answer.
I want you to know I have my laptop open, and it's very tempting to go to goldenroad.net, look these things up, but I'm not doing it. I'm playing by the rules. So.
I really appreciate that, but you know all this stuff in your head. You don't even need that.
Well, some of them, yeah. But like I said, I was pretty sure Spelling Bee was a later one.
1984 was one away. Pathfinder didn't come out until 1987. Spelling Bee in 1988.
Yeah, that sounds right to me, yep.
So you have 12,000 points. You need 4,000 points in this round, so 2 correct answers will get you the win.
All right.
Here comes round 3, and your target year is 1997. 1997.
Okay.
Here come your 6 pricing games. Side by side, pick a number, easy as 1, 2, 3, let them roll, line them up, and freeze frame. 4 of those debuted before 1997. Pick 2 of them correctly and you win grand game. That's side by side, pick a number, easy as 1, 2, 3, let them roll, line them up, and freeze frame.
I definitely know that pick a number was 1990 or 1991. I'll go with that one first.
Unfortunately, you were wrong. Pick a number was 1992, but it was still before 1997. You got it.
I was going to say, I know it's before 97. All right.
So this is big. Really think about this. This is for the win.
I know, and I'm not sure about any of these. 97. I feel like I should know at least one of these is before 97. Okay, let me think here. What would I know for sure came later? All right, I'm going to go with side by side.
You're going to go with side by side. This is for the win. What year do you think it came out?
Well, I'm hoping before 97, so I'm going to say 95, 96.
You're hoping before 97, and in fact, it came out in 1994. It is correct. Ted, you have won grand game!
Woohoo! Yay!
Just for fun.
That was a hard third round.
You can't lose anything because you'd still get the 4,000 points, even if you got the next one wrong. What would you have been your next pick?
If I had to pick another one, I would say line them up.
Well, good that you said side by side before that. Line them up is incorrect. 1998. So technically, you still won 4,000 points for that round. And that means after the third round, you needed 16,000 points, and you got 16,000 points. Congratulations.
Yay! Thank you, thank you.
Let's see. Easy as 1, 2, 3 was 1996, so that was correct. And freeze frame was 1995, so that was correct. Let 'em roll 1999.
Yeah, that one to me seemed like it was the newest, but they all seem new, and I was having a hard time kind of figuring out which one came when. And that also is the period of time when I wasn't really watching the show that much. So it's not that hard to figure out that I wouldn't know those necessarily as well as the others.
Well, you were watching in the 90s just enough to win this game. And so thanks for playing Grand Game. Grand Game. Well, Ted, I've had so much fun talking with you today about The Price is Right and the movie and your timeline of Price is Right history that you are a part of. So thank you so much for joining me today on the game show.
Absolutely. I'm very grateful that you asked me to do this. It was a lot of fun for me, too.
Oh, well, I really appreciate that. And you always have an invitation to come back on to talk about Price is Right or any other topic in the game show world.
All right. Good to know. Thank you.
All right, Ted. Once again, it's been such a pleasure talking to another loyal friend and true of The Price is Right.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it as well.
And to me, you are not just that audience guy. You are a loyal friend and true.
Yes, I appreciate hearing that as well.
All right, Ted. Take care. And one more time for the listening audience, say the name of the film.
The name of the film is Perfect Bid, The Contestant Who Knew Too Much.
And hopefully it'll be in New York soon. And when it's out on DVD and Netflix, everyone go check it out because I can't wait to check it out.
That's awesome. Thank you.
All right. All the best with the film in 2018.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Thanks. You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, as they say, all good things must come to an end, and we've sadly come to the end of another episode of The Game Show. However, never fear! You can get your fix of the Bradster and The Game Show by logging on to www.soundcloud.com/Bradley_Clarke, that's BRADLEY_CLARKE/sets/The Game Show. That's www.soundcloud.com/Bradley_Clarke, that's BRADLEY_CLARKE/sets/The Game Show. There you'll find all my previous episodes and game segments of The Game Show. Also, feel free to like The Game Show starring Bradley Clarke on Facebook and follow The Game Show starring Bradley Clarke on Twitter using the handle @TheGameShowBC and hashtag The Game Show. But of course, be sure to tune in next time for another exciting episode of the talk show all about the world of television game and competition shows, The Game Show. Bradley Clarke reminding you, help control the pet population. Have your pets spayed or neutered. Goodbye, everybody.
This edition of The Game Show was created and produced by Bradley Clarke and was recorded at the WRHU studios. This is Austin Angelo speaking.
The Game Show is a Bradley Clarke production. Get your game on.